Welcome to Kelowna Now Live. I'm Jason Mann, and joining me is Landon Aldridge of Skyfire Energy. And Landon is based here in the Okanagan with us, but is the COO for Skyfire Energy, which is, I guess, in both the Okanagan and in Calgary, and operate a solar installation company across Western Canada, essentially, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. We've also got a satellite office in Edmonton as well, just to handle the north.
Okay. So, and as far as my understanding about Skyfire, it's been around for about 23 years, which makes it one of the original, if not the original, solar companies in Canada. What do you think has been the key to maintaining leadership and staying at the forefront of the industry for so long? And yeah, just give us a bit of a sense of that.
I think really leaning on a couple of our core values. Number one being innovation. Not afraid to try new things and learn from those. Those new things. The other big one for me is integrity, and I think that's something we've never strayed from. We've always been honest and upfront with what you can expect from solar, what it can and can't do. We don't want to overpromise. So I think setting those realistic expectations right from the get go, I think, is what's made us successful and really trusted.
The market must have changed quite a bit from the early days of 23 years ago when people were like, solar,
Yeah.
what? Why? To today, where I think the demand has built up quite a bit more. Why do you think this demand has grown, and what have you seen in terms of demand increase since your involvement with the company?
Yeah, it's been amazing, honestly. I've been in solar now for 20 years, and when I started, it was really just off grid. Those remote cabins where you're supplementing a generator, keeping a couple lights, and maybe a blender for margaritas going. Pretty basic stuff, right? Um, since then, it's really just been all grid tied or grid connected projects, and the uptake has been massive. I think the pricing just it's a global commodity now, right? So I read the other day that solar modules are cheaper than a similar sized television now, which is
Wow.
just incredible, right? Looking back, I know how expensive things were when I started 20 years ago, and what they are today. So I just think it's been awareness. It's been the price point coming down. It's been the price of utilities going up. It's really created a bit of a perfect storm for solar. Solar is unique in that it can be deployed really anywhere, right? It's modular. You can throw it on most roofs. It's not like a big wind turbine where you need space. So it's we find it's just sort of the most easily deployed, I guess. The most modular type of energy source out there, and it's become the cheapest on planet Earth. Let's face it. So we have a decent resource here in the Okanagan. Obviously, winters are a little gray, but having net metering and the ability to build up some credits with utilities has really been a game changer.
Are you finding more and more people concerned about the environmental trends or concerns? And what's your take on that right now? Where do you see we sit?
Yeah, I think that's certainly top of mind for many, not all. Everyone has different triggers,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some are just pure financial; they just want to save money on the bills. They want to get some energy security. Others want to do something special, do the right thing for their grandkids, that sort of thing, right? Lead by example. So I think everybody has different triggers and different motivations for why they choose solar.
That's interesting. And money, that's a highly motivating factor right there. So I can
Sure
see that being
is.
number
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure
Um,
is.
yeah, over 23 years, you obviously have smoothed out your operations. It's a well-oiled machine.
Sure.
What can you give us a sense of what steps you take to simplify the process for customers from like assessment to installation and what all that includes?
Yeah, I think there's always opportunity for improvement, right? We've seen that over the years. But I think what's really set Skyfire apart is we take the time to really understand those motivations for that particular customer. We'll still go to site and do a real detailed site assessment to understand what we're up against. We don't want surprises during the install, and the customer obviously doesn't want surprises with additional cost. So, we typically, have an introductory call, try and understand their motivation. Are they just trying to maximize their roof? Are they trying to maximize the Greener Homes loan? Like I say, there's different triggers. So we'll put together a real high level estimate remotely based on what we can see. That's using platforms like Google Earth or other aerial photography sites that we use. We have a pretty good sense of what things cost, given our experience. So we'll give a pretty high level number at that point. If that fits within the customer's needs and budget, then we'll go to site and do something a little bit more detailed and put a formal price together. So I think that's where we differ a little bit from maybe some of the other competitors out there.
Mm-hmm. And you have experience across not only residential but commercial and even utility scale projects. What is the process that you go through to tailor solutions to fit a customer's unique needs? Is it you're on site? Is it measurements of the roof? How does it work? A little bit more detail would be interesting.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll look at obviously the structural component. How is that roof framed? Will it be able to support solar? You don't want to overlook that step, that's for sure. We've started using drones a couple of years ago, so it's amazing how accurate they are to take roof measurements, and it's safe, right? We don't have to send our sales staff up on a roof to pull out the old tape measure and lumber crayon and make measurements. So flying the drone, we're able to capture a couple hundred photos from the air, and then we can take that back to our software and design it remotely. It's as someone that's been in the industry a long time, I am still blown away by how accurate drone measurements are.
And you get some killer before and after shots.
You sure do. Yeah, it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun, right? Yeah, it's fun to fly a drone.
Yeah.
So structural, obviously we're going to fly the drone and then gathering information around electrical. What are we tying into? Do we need a service upgrade? What's our home run path going to be? So basically, how do we get cable from the roof to the electrical panel? So really just trying to capture all that information. And then, we have that information down the road as well. So, should we have a service call, let's say in a couple of years, we're not trying to remember what we did for that particular home. It's, we've got all of that information, photos to be able to, really do a lot of that remotely.
Some folks might be wondering about snow load and maintenance in the winter in some place like the mountains in the Okanagan. Any concerns with respect to winter maintenance or you're shoveling your driveway? Are you shoveling your roof too?
I don't recommend it. It's interesting. I think everyone knows what the Okanagan winter's like, right? It's, I heard someone mention it to me the other day. They call it a gray tunnel. It kind of is, right? And we know that. I did a study on my own house a couple of years ago, and I lost less than 2% of my annual production due to snow because I didn't clear it off. The production during those days, if it was free of snow, is very minimal to begin with, right? So I mentioned earlier about net metering. Net metering is basically the billing structure that utilities offer for us to be able to tie to the grid and offset our consumption with solar. So typically during the summer months and the shoulder months, which we know have lots of sun, we got long days, we're able to capitalize and overproduce during that time. So we build up a bunch of credits, and then we draw upon those credits during the gray days of the winter when we are using more power. So, the intent is that you could still get to net zero, but you're really trying to oversize and capitalize on your summer months and shoulder months.
And net metering, there's something about net metering that's kind of unique or special to BC. Is that not correct? Or it's not available? It's not the model in every province, is it? Where you can bank your solar power?
Well, even in BC, it's slightly different. So there's there's what's called net metering, of course, which is essentially just a credit, a kilowatt hour credit. Okay, so Fortis and BC Hydro are both going to offer those. They call it a kilowatt hour bank. Okay, so it's at retail rate essentially, but there is no money exchanging hands. They just apply those credits to future billing cycles. Areas like the City of Penticton or District of Summerland have what's called net billing. So it's essentially they pay you out, if you will, on every utility bill. So if you've got a credit, the credit just gets applied to other areas of that bill, which those are unique in that you've got sewer, you've got water, you've got other services that show up
Interesting.
on that bill.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas Fortis is just strictly electricity, or BC Hydro is just strictly electricity.
Okay. Interesting. Um, And should that change in the future? It sounds like that's something that gets grandfathered potentially with the systems and that kind of stuff as well. So I guess why I'm thinking about this or wanting to mention it or bring it up, I'm wondering if there's a sense of urgency around people making a decision to make sure that they slide in while net metering is still a thing. Do you see it going away or?
I don't see it going away. Could it be restructured? For sure. There's talk of time of use billing as well, which is not uncommon in other jurisdictions. And it is a voluntary, it's an option right now with both Fortis and BC Hydro. So you could opt for time of use billing in that you will pay more, you'll pay peak rates during those sort of more popular times a day, right? So basically in the morning, getting ready for school, getting ready for work. And then when you come home, cooking dinner, they're going to charge you higher rates. Sometimes they'll charge high rates during the day and lower rates at night. So, we've seen in other areas, like California and other states where they play a bit of an energy arbitrage game. So they introduce storage. They'll have solar plus storage in their own home and essentially run on solar and storage during the day when it's expensive. And then at night, they charge those batteries back up. So playing that game a little bit, I would expect something similar maybe down the road in BC. But the reality is we are importing electricity into BC right now. Right, have a pretty sizable demand. Snowpack is certainly not what it used to be. So I think BC Hydro especially understands that you need all sources, right? Whether it's solar, whether it's wind, whether it's hydro. We are, I'd like to say we are blessed in BC in that we can use those dams like a large battery.
Hmm.
So we can introduce intermittent sources like solar and wind, which, solar at least can go on somebody's roof. So you're offsetting load immediately at that location with solar, right?
Hmm.
Any excess just goes back into the grid to be able to use elsewhere. So, we can release water when we need it, whereas the other sources can sort of handle that base load, if you will.
I feel like we're in the Goldilocks zone right now, just in terms of
Yeah.
the pricing of solar has gone down. There's this net metering, which makes things very financially advantageous, and there's even some incentives, floating around. I understand BC Hydro has a program. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So up until earlier this year, we had a federal grant program called Greener Homes. So there was a Greener Homes grant. And then the other component, which still exists today, is the Greener Homes loan. So both federal programs. So BC Hydro was essentially trying to fill a void with the Greener Homes grant going away. So they offer up to $5,000 for solar. And then they've got a second grant that offers up to $5,000 for residential storage. So both of those are residential incentives, only available in BC Hydro territory. So West Kelowna, Lake Country North, essentially. They've also done a call for power last year. So I believe the first intake was about a month ago it closed. They got essentially twice as many projects as needed. So I think they're sort of filtering through to see what has the best economics, the best location, that sort of thing. Those would be at the utility scale. So like I say, we still have the Greener Homes loan, which basically you involves an energy audit. So if someone comes to your home, does an audit of essentially your mechanical systems, your building envelope, that sort of thing. But they give you a number. So that number allows you to apply to the Greener Homes loan program, which is up to $40,000, 10-year amortization, zero interest, which is pretty incredible
Yeah,
in this
that's
day
like
and
free
age.
money.
It's free money. So definitely a lot of people taking advantage of that for solar as well as other energy efficiency improvements, right? Whether it's windows, insulation, heat pumps, that sort of thing.
And
So it's
essentially, with that loan, you can offset the price that you're paying, or the money that you would be paying the utility company you're paying off the loan, and it's can kind of wash out, or it's pretty close anyways, right? Like you wouldn't
that it
expect to see a big increase in your monthly living cost by adding solar. In fact, it should be pretty much flat, correct?
correct. Yeah, I mean that is the intent. Certainly, there's exceptions to the rule. I mean, you're going to have some large homes that use a lot of electricity. Um, it's obviously going to offset a smaller portion of that. So I think for the average home, though, the intent there is that you would supplement or completely offset those loan payments with reduced energy pricing.
Mm-hmm. How does it work then? I'm curious. Just if I were to bring on solar, do the loan, and then
Mhm.
in 3 years sell my house, does that loan stay with me or does it stay with the house? How does that work?
That loan stays with you, the
Yeah.
individual. Yeah,
Okay.
because it's based on your credit rating. It's based on your financial history. So you would pay off that loan essentially when when you change hands with the house.
But on the other side of the coin, I'm assuming that a house with solar installed and functioning is going to have a higher value on the marketplace.
Correct. I mean, we've been seeing that for a while. I don't think there's a hard, fast rule about what you could expect. There's been lots of studies, but the one that I always remember is the Appraisal Institute did a study where every $1,000 of annual energy savings would basically add an additional $20,000 to the value of that home.
Hmm.
But I mean, that's there's studies. What actually comes into practice is still, I guess, an unknown. Reality is people are more aware of what a home is going to cost them to operate. Um, it used to be just strictly stainless steel and granite. That's what they were attracted to, but now they want to understand the operating costs of that home. So you're starting to see a lot more of that.
Mm. And so the Skyfire is a B corporation. For those who don't know exactly what that means, can you give us a sense?
Sure. So B Corporation is essentially a third party rating system for corporations, right? So it's very extensive, it's very exhaustive, it's challenging to achieve those minimum scores, but it essentially means that we value our people and external people to the company, planet and profit, sort of all on the same level.
Mm.
And B Corp is really it's almost like a guiding light for us now, where we take we take to heart of what B Corp stands for with a lot of our decision making now, right? Similarly to how we rely on our core values to where we steer this company, we really try and use the B Corp as a bit of a guide.
And so, what would be included in those values? Like, how are you filtering your decisions? What things are you bringing into consideration that you might not otherwise? I mean, you sort of said it at a high level, but is there
Well, I
something?
think both to start with governance, so how we govern the company. So we're an employee-owned company now. As a result, we just went through our round this year. I believe we're up to 48 individual owners. So we have 134 staff ish, something like that today. So 48 of those 134 staff are actually employee owners, and it's broad based. So everyone from a second year apprentice all the way up to myself as CEO or COO, and then my partner is CEO. So really spread out through all corners of the business and all of our locations. So a great representation of this company. Similarly, I guess community and giving back. We've developed a program called Power Your Purpose. So we do that every year, where we donate solar to a nonprofit that really needs it. So we've tried and spread that around to our locations every year, but that's become pretty amazing to see. Internally, just everyone will volunteer to do that type of work, and we have our vendors and suppliers. They'll donate a bunch more product to put a bigger system in. So that's been pretty amazing to see.
Mm.
And then I think just a lot of our policies that we've created as a company, just looking to what B Corp has sort of set as a guideline.
I know we have a couple of photos of a couple of projects in the Okanagan. Maybe we
Sure.
could just quickly take a look at this one. This is Penticton, right?
Yeah, pretty typical residential system. I don't recall what the offset was, but I would expect probably be 75+% of their annual electricity comes from solar.
Mm-hmm. And maybe we could take another quick look of this one. This is Oyama, nice looking property there. Wow, stunner
Yeah,
overview.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We get to work on some pretty nice homes and some pretty nice areas, but yeah, beautiful system for sure.
And a flat roof
Yeah.
can work just as well as a slopes pitch, depending on which
Yep.
way the pitch is going, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, flat roofs, you're typically limited a bit more with space to put larger systems in. But yeah, I think we've installed on every type of roof out there, and there's certainly a racking type to meet those needs. We do a lot of residential here, obviously in the Okanagan, but we have done a fair amount of commercial over the years. Really all of the Okanagan college systems were done by Skyfire. We've done some work up at UBCO here the past couple of years. Last year, we commissioned the Summerland Salt Plus Storage project. So that's a smaller utility scale project, but
Yeah.
basically that feeds into the District of Summerland utility grid, and then they've got storage there to battle basically peak shaving with Fortis, and then they've got a small number of backup loads on that as well.
That's
So
really a
really,
landmark
we've
project, really, right? I mean, that's a big one.
yeah, it's a great model, I think, of what these smaller utilities are able to do. Right,
Yeah.
they all purchase from um, one of the bigger utilities, right? Whether it's BC Hydro or Fortis. So, and they're all subject to paying those peak rates if the demand is too great. So this is a great opportunity for them to try and put a bit more back into their pockets.
So if I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this sounds interesting. Solar is definitely the wave of the future. I can see it. I can see how it could help. I can see how it's affordable. I see how I can get financial assistance essentially, and it's going to cost me very, very little to get it going. It's going to increase the value of my home. I'm going to be in more control of my energy destiny, if you will, in a way.
Yeah, sure.
Um, how do I pick between my providers? There's a number of them. I would say like with 23 years operating experience, one of the original solar companies now across Western Canada, I feel like there's going to be stability in the future when it comes to what happens if something goes wrong or the warranty, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, so I'm just wondering, is that important in your mind as well? Do you find customer feedback as that's a defining point of value?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think number one, do your research. Don't just take the first option that knocks on your door, literally.
Mm,
Do your research, call others to get comparable pricing. Understand who you're potentially going to be dealing with. We've been around a long time. We're going to be around a long time. We've got dedicated service teams. So, if something does go wrong down the road, we're there to fix it and help support the customer through the product warranty of that particular product. Unfortunately, when you've got incentives and grants and loans and that sort of thing, a lot of new companies pop up, and I've seen it many times over the past 20 years. And then when the grants go away, then guess what? There's no more company, and they leave a lot of what we call orphaned systems.
mm.
So definitely do your research. Make sure you're feeling comfortable with that particular installer, and get some references. Really understand some of their previous installs and speak to previous customers.
All right.
Or you can call Skyfire, and then it's done.
Exactly, right? Make it easy on yourself. At
That's
least
right.
consider Skyfire, that's for sure. So, is there anything else that you want to share with anybody that might be tuned in about Skyfire and the Okanagan?
Yeah, if you're in the neighborhood, we've got a showroom over in West Kelowna on Stevens Road, so 7 minutes from the bridge, not too far. Definitely pop by, and we'll give you a bit of a tour, and definitely show you how solar works and what you can expect.
And the assessment to see what it might cost and how much energy you could create. That's all free, right? Like you can go down the process to a certain
Yeah,
point and before you make a decision, but you can really get all the information you need. Correct?
correct. Yeah, correct. Like I say, we take that extra step to make sure that the price that we give you is the price you're going to pay. We don't want to be adding change orders down the road because we didn't understand, what the system was going to look like until we got to your home. So
Yeah. And as long as there's no snow on the roof, we're installing.
Yeah, we install right through the winter.
Okay.
Yeah, right through the winter. Obviously, we're going to get some snow days and weather days here and there, but we'll just switch to interior work.
Yeah.
We're installing a lot of Tesla Powerwalls these days as well, so
Mm.
that keeps the guys busy.
All right. Well, Landon, thanks for giving us so much information about solar and Skyfire Energy. We really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to chatting again in the future.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate the chat.
Okay. Likewise.
Bye.